Hey there, theoretical bullshit. How you doing? I just watched this video, God's Little Interventions, and you know, I never thought, you were really negative on Christianity, but I know you kind of seem you didn't seem negative here per se, but you seem very negative of the person Joel Osteen. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, I look at Joel Osteen, he's a fucking moron. That's right, he's a moron. Why? Because he preaches this gospel of what's it called? It's called the gospel of prosperity. If you do what God says that if you do what God commands, then He will reward you. That's not always true, and I really dislike him in general. Particularly, one little situation I have right now. My mother has been watching him, and my father has been watching him. Now, I think they understand what it is that's going on with him, because it's one thing when you preach to one person, but when you speak to a mass of people and you try and sell merchandise, and I kind of don't believe in the idea of, hey, we're going to preach to you, but we want you to buy these items or anything like that. It I don't believe in the idea of a little economy going on behind religion. Mainly because um, it almost eliminates the idea of what you're bringing. I'm bringing you this because I honestly think it's the truth, rather than I'm bringing you this because I think it'll get me money. Um, a lot of people tend to move away from the true point of them preaching, and I feel Joel Osteen is I don't necessarily think he doesn't believe in God. I'm saying that I think he's flirting with the idea. That's why I tend not to like him. I don't like to watch his shows because he does preach this gospel of prosperity, which is not necessarily in the Bible. Uh, it's one thing to say that God will reward you for actions that you have done, and I believe that to be very true. But the idea that it will happen constantly and consistently and persistently every single time that you do something is fallacy. It doesn't say that. I mean, God's will is God's will. He will decide to do it as He pleases. It's not like you have any control over it, according to Christianity. Um, as to this whole thing, the idea of this traffic jam that was posed in front of him, I don't, I, he, I, the way that he put it, the idea of this traffic jam is in front of him because he needs to learn patience was probably true. But I think the idea that it was only put there because of him was narcissistic and egocentrical. If he really wanted to be a little more understanding of it, and maybe a little more, if he wasn't thinking so much about himself, maybe this traffic jam was put there because all of those people there needed to learn patience. Maybe not even so much as that. Maybe you go deeper, thinking about God's will. I think you got to try to think of all angles. And I feel like he didn't do that. And that's part of the problem why it is that the way he preaches is really dumb. Um, I would think that, supposing that there is a traffic jam in front of me. Okay, one day I need to get somewhere, and okay, this traffic jam is in front of me. I gotta maybe I'll take another road. Oh, there's another traffic jam. Okay, I'll go back to this other road. Okay, maybe God is trying to teach me patience. But that's solely me. Maybe there's another man next to me that also needs to learn patience. Maybe there's somebody here in the car to my left that is trying to get to the airport, and he's denied getting to the airport, but yet, oh, he needed to get to that airport because he needed to get to a meeting, and he loses his job. Or maybe this woman next to me is trying to get to her job so that she can pose you know, a some kind of business proposal, let's say. And even though she is running to get to this place, she gets into an accident and she's about to die. Maybe it was a point in time where it came for her to die. And now everybody's in this traffic jam. Well, now maybe this person next to me was just trying to get into the apartment complex that was only a mile up the road because his sister needs medication. and she's just feeling very sick. Maybe the guy behind me is trying to get to this bridge because he's meeting his girlfriend at a restaurant, and he wants to pop the question to her, and yet he's denied that ability. So I think he kind of just thought of it at a very, very egocentric view. Maybe everything happens for a reason for everybody that's around, not just for you. It's a very central. He made a very small point there, just mentioning himself, when he could have mentioned everybody that was around. Everything works to somebody's advantage and to somebody's disadvantage, is what I'm saying. And at those points in time, you'll learn, okay, maybe, this was placed here for somebody else, and for me, and for everybody that was around. This is happening to everybody. It's a global issue. It's not, religion is not just based on one person. It's based on everybody's beliefs. So I think he kind of, Joel Osteen probably put a bad taste in your mouth. So I would honestly, don't listen to the guy. I think he's a moron. He speaks. I don't think it's so much as that he's a moron, but the way that he preaches is not necessarily, I feel, a effective approach. He doesn't necessarily take into account what other people are thinking, and he talks about himself because he wants to try and convey the message of his personal faith and his personal friendship with God, so to speak. He doesn't necessarily think about what anybody else is thinking because he really doesn't care, I think. And, if he wanted to be a little more, if he wanted to really create this view that God is like all understanding, all knowing, I think he would point all of that stuff out. But he wants you to see the love that he has for God. It's his way of preaching, I guess. So I figured that, it's ineffective. I usually preach to show, like, whenever I come up to somebody and I talk to them, I do want to show them my personal belief in God. And I want them to show that I don't necessarily preach to them. I show that through my life. Be like, hey, this is what I do on a normal basis. I practice this, I practice that, and I show them why it is that I practice that. So preaching is not only verbal, it is also nonverbal. And by the actions that you commit, you will understand as to why it is I believe in something. Maybe. Maybe. Hopefully maybe. So I would say that Joel Osteen verbally can't really, communicate that point very well, but the way he lives might be a good way of seeing. But you don't really know him, you can't tell, so the verbal is the only thing you can really go by, which is not necessarily good. All the time, anyway. So I'll leave you with that, that was something that was placed on my heart, mind, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, man. Peace out.